Can we all stand as the High Commissioner enters? We remain standing at this time as the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is played. With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare. Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land. We pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Before we take our seats, earlier this year, the mission was provided with a new defense attaché. He's Mr. Glenroy Phillips, and he will come at this time to open us in a word of prayer.
As we look upon our Creator and open this meeting, looking unto God, who is the author and the finisher of our faith, Father, we commend this session into your hand. We pray, O God, that you would take preeminence, O God. Let our discussion, Lord God, truly be fruitful, O God, and in an amicable way, O God. Being mindful, O God, that you are the one who have brought us here, and because of your mercy and your grace, O God, that we, O God, could be gathered here at a time like this. We pray, O God, that as we have our deliberation and our discussion, it would be free, it would be frank, it would be fair, with respect one for another, O God. We pray, O God, that a spirit of peace would prevail in this atmosphere, O God. And as we open our session, O God, we pray that you would truly go before us and let everything be done in accordance with your will and your purpose. For these mercies we ask in your name. Amen.
The High Commissioner and staff of the High Commission of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago wishes to thank you for your participation in this meeting this afternoon, taking time out in what is a cold and damp day here in London. And without further ado, I would like to invite our High Commissioner, His Excellency Orville London, who will address us at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baird, and let me join him in welcoming you to another quarterly meeting. And I want to start as I want to especially welcome some nationals who have made us very proud in recent times. And I want, as I call their names, for them to stand, because I think they deserve to be specially recognized. Mr. Bernard Beckers, Mr. Shane Valentine, Mrs. Joan Hampton, Mr. Anthony Tankai, and Mr. Nigel Cornwall. Just remain standing. It's your time to shine. These individuals, along with one other person, Ms. Gemma Lewis, who is absent, made Trinidad and Tobago proud. I think all of us know of the Chelsea Flower Show, and they would in fact have represented Trinidad and Tobago in the Chelsea Flower Show, and they won gold. And I want to congratulate them, please. Yeah, have a seat. Have a seat. And this particular event has had a tremendous impact in Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, Mr. Lovell has told me that it is the most viewed post that we've ever had on our Facebook page. In fact, to date, 90,000 people have looked at the video, and over 200,000 people have viewed the post, so that they're now world famous people. And I want to pay a tribute to them, not only because of what they did at the Chelsea Flower Show, but because of the resilience, because of the courage, because of the fortitude which they displayed. I was in Tobago when they were planning, and I saw them on television indicating that they needed $85,000 to make the trip. And that was just a couple of days before. And I told myself, well, these people ain't going anywhere. And then a couple of days after, Mr. Wanaya called me and said, they're in London. I said, what? And then, of course, she called me the good news. And it's only when I spoke to them today that I understood why these people have to be admired. They needed $185,000 to make the trip. They received contributions to the tune of $2,607, and they're here. And they came, and they conquered, because they decided to utilize their own funds to come to the United Kingdom to make Trinidad and Tobago proud. And we are in fact proud of them. So thanks again. I want to especially welcome Ms. Carol Haye from the Caribbean Tourism Association. We're so very happy that you were able to make it through the weather. We in Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the region are aware of the contribution that tourism is making to the development and even the survival of many Caribbean countries. But we recognize that we're all competing in a very dynamic and challenging environment. And I must say that I am not certain that Trinidad and Tobago is doing as well as it should. But I want to suggest that in these trying economic times, if ever Trinidad and Tobago needed a boost in its tourism, that time is now. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a very lively and fruitful discussion with Ms. Haye, of course, to the benefit of our country as we try to improve and enhance our tourism sector. Tomorrow is Indian Arrival Day, and I think we in the United Kingdom, we in this room, we want to join our compatriots back home in paying tribute to the East Indian community as we recall their early struggles and applaud their contribution to the development of Trinidad and Tobago, and I dare say the United Kingdom. They remain especially those who came early, they remain exemplars and sources of inspiration. We cannot underestimate their contribution to the diverse culture of Trinidad and Tobago. And I understand that later on, we are going to be treated to some East Indian delicacies. I, for one, am especially looking forward to the doubles. Now, as you might be aware, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, and a Trinidad and Tobago delegation return to the United Kingdom tomorrow from a 2-day trip to the Netherlands, where they signed a very important energy agreement with Shell. They will be involved in crucial discussions with BP tomorrow, and they, of course, we are hoping that these discussions are successful. And we, of course, are more interested, or we get more involved on Friday when the Prime Minister hosts a meeting with the Diaspora. And I think, as we said the last time, that as the country continues on the path to recovery, the Diaspora has an important role to play. And those of you who read the last issue of the newsletter would remember what I indicated, and I want to quote. Nationals on both sides of the Atlantic need to know what is really being achieved in each place. They need to understand and appreciate each other better and determine how they can collaborate for greater impact and effectiveness. And of course, there is no one better positioned to assist you in understanding and appreciating while motivating you to collaborate and contribute than the Prime Minister. So fortunately, there are still a couple tickets available, not very many, and those of you who have not yet indicated and got your tickets, please speak to Ms. Awanaya before you go, because I'm certain that by the end of the day, that facility will not be available. And the Amber people are very, very strict with respect to the numbers. So once we've crossed the threshold, we are not going to allow anybody else. So you here have the opportunity to speak to Ms. Awanaya. And then on Wednesday, June the 5th, the Muslim community marks the end of 1 month of fasting with the celebration of Eid ul-Fitr. And I want to say, friends, as we celebrate, you know, sometimes when we do the celebration, we forget the reasons for the celebration. The Muslims celebrate as a reward for the fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. And I think as we celebrate Eid, we must remind ourselves of some of the basic tenets of the Muslim faith. Charity to the less fortunate, subordination of the spiritual of the physical to the spiritual, steadfast devotion to the achievement of positive objectives, and belief in the power of the Supreme Being are qualities which would have been highlighted by Muslims during the month of Ramadan, and these qualities must remain to all of us, must remain relevant to all of us, whether Muslim or not, every day of every year. And I think we want to remember that as we celebrate Eid. And you know, I spoke about pride in the present. I want to touch on 2 events or 2 activities that have instilled pride in the past for me, and I think should be for all of us as nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. I think we who lived in the United Kingdom will know that Trinidad and Tobago nationals have been among the pioneers and major catalysts for change right here in this country. Among the most outstanding was Lord Larry Constantine, the first Trinidad and Tobago High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. And the London Mission is extremely proud to be associated with Coordinator Trinidad and Tobago National, Mr. Terence Braffith, the retired Director of Postgraduate Studies at Coventry Law School, the University of the West Indies Faculty of Law, the British Foundation for the University of the West Indies, the Commonwealth Secretariat, the Voice Media Group UK, and the Birmingham Centers for Arts Therapies in the hosting of a law and multicultural medicine colloquium under the theme Windrush and the Hostile Environment, Law, Wellness, and Prospects for Future Generations. This colloquium is scheduled for this very room on Saturday, June the 8th, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the achievement of Larry Constantine, who was the first black person to be elevated to the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. And I think that we have to understand the importance of that particular achievement. But he was not just a peer, he was not just a cricketer. Larry Constantine was a fierce defender of the rights of black people. And we remember one special case in which he was involved. And he did so in the face of discrimination and prejudice. It is therefore most appropriate that this conference will treat with various aspects of the injustice meted out to our Caribbean people, those members of the Windrush generation just a few years ago. And again, there are still just a very few tickets available. It's on Saturday, June the 8th. It starts at 9 in the morning. And those of you who would like to be part of this, where we analyze various aspects of that Windrush scandal, you can in fact contact Ms. Awenaya. And while we're on the subject of former high commissioners, let me remind of the film Hero, which premiered at BFI South Bank in London a little over a week ago. This film chronicles the fabulous and impactful life of Ulrich Cross, RAF pilot and war hero, colleague and advisor to some of the major players in the Pan-African movement, lawyer, judge, and of course Trinidad and Tobago High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. And you know, as I think of Justice Cross and Lord Larry, the pictures of the High Commissioners are lined up the staircase. And you could imagine the very humbling experience for me as I woke up there every morning and see the list of these distinguished gentlemen who held this position over the decades. And I think we as Trinidadians and Tobagonians must be proud of them. And my information on the film Hero is that it has earned rave reviews for those of you who have not seen it, or maybe wish to see it again. It will be shown in 7 separate cinemas around London between Saturday, June the 22nd and Sunday, June the 30th. So if you check our Facebook page, you'll be able to see where the film is being premiered, and you can go and have a look at it. Those who have seen it say that it is not only entertaining, but it's also a good history lesson, and it tells you a lot of what happened during that period when Ulrich Cross would have given advice and support and guidance to a number of the leaders during that exciting era of the Pan-African movement. So ladies and gentlemen, you recognize that we have a very packed schedule ahead for the next week or so. And we have a packed schedule today, so I wouldn't want to keep you all very much longer. But the point I want to make is that all the activities about which I have spoken, about the dissemination of relevant and accurate information. And that is what you're going to get also on Friday when you come out to hear the Prime Minister. But they're also about reinforcing pride in our past and instilling hope for the future. It is that pride and that hope that would engender commitment to country and to each other, regardless of the geographical space which we happen to occupy at this time. And I say to you, and I mean that in all honesty, Trinidad and Tobago needs all its sons and daughters to unite on this challenging phase of our journey. And we in the United Kingdom cannot afford to shirk our responsibilities. We at the mission, the Prime Minister and his team when we come, will try to ensure that we disseminate accurate information. We'll try to ensure that together we can work out strategies and initiatives that the people in the United Kingdom can in fact relate and collaborate with the people in Trinidad and Tobago to the benefit of our country. Countries all over the world are doing it, leveraging the power and the potential of their diaspora. Trinidad and Tobago has to do the same. But as I said the last time, and I'll continue to say, we cannot do it except we get the information. and except be able to deal with the insights to allow us to be able to motivate ourselves and to prepare ourselves to do what is necessary for the benefit of our country. So once again, let me thank you all for coming. And as we embark on this phase of getting more and more information, I think it's very appropriate that Ms. Haye is here. And of course, I'll ask the chair to introduce her. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Excellency, for your words. And I hope that we all listened carefully and were able to take it to heart. Without further ado, I would like to invite our guest speaker today, Ms. Carol Haye. She's the Director of Marketing for the Caribbean Tourism Organization for the UK and Europe. And she is here to share with us what is taking place in the industry at this time. Ms. Haye.
It's all good fun, keeps you out of trouble. Do you have a clicker as well, or how am I managed?
We do feel it, yeah.
Okay. So I hope everyone's all right. Thank you so much for being here. And before I begin, I should say I actually had the pleasure of going to see Hero. I was at the premiere as well, so there and a few other people there. And you know what? It was such a fascinating movie. I knew nothing about Mr. Cross, his lifestyle or anything. And I was glued to the screen from start to finish. And I was sitting next to this lady who was getting quite emotional throughout the film. And then it turned out afterwards that she was actually one of the actresses and she played his wife. So I was really honored to be sitting next to her and while I'm watching it, having the actress also share her experience as well. So I recommend to everyone that if you haven't had the opportunity to see Hero, please go and see it. My heritage is Jamaican. My parents came over from Jamaica, but I watched it with a real sense of pride also because I'm ex-BWE staff. I used to work for BWE, yeah, so believe me. Spent a lot of time out in Piarco, so shark and bake, everything, boss up shot, yeah man, I used to really enjoy my trip. Yeah, that's a Jamaican merging with it. So is this young man, all right, he's going to try and get something for me to press, but I'll do this anyway. So good evening, my name is Carol Haye. Thank you, Your Excellency, for having me here. I acknowledge the presence of all members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My absolute pleasure to be with you. Oh, goodness, we're in trouble. It says no sync signal, power save now, you know. So let's see what's happening. What, you had to check the password? That's all right. In a past life, I probably would have been a comedian, but I won't pick on him tonight because I know he's trying to help me. So who was home recently? Who was in Trinidad or Tobago recently? Anybody was home recently? He was High Commissioner. No, you have to be there. Who else? Yeah? How was it? How was it? Oh, you came back in March, but you had a good experience. Did you do any of the tourist things? No, see, that's what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. Yes.
And I haven't seen those places. So when I go next time, I'm going to make sure.
That's it, we have to. We have to. That's how we support our economy.
Yes.
And we'll speak so much more about it. I say that all the time, even to my friends and relatives. When they go to Jamaica, they go and then stay in mama little house. And I'm like, no, you need to go out and support the economy and share what's happening. But we're going to speak some more in a moment about the role of the diaspora and what we can do. It's a good thing I know my job. I've been director for 10 years, so we're going to get started. So, the Caribbean Tourism Organization is a tourism development agency that is owned by 24 Caribbean countries, including Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the reason why we exist as an organization is that in this business of tourism, there are some very strong destinations out there who really lead this business, but there are also lesser known destinations. So by having a regional tourism organization, it means that we can help each other. So when we talk about the Caribbean rather than individual countries sometimes, is because we want to create this awareness of this region called the Caribbean, and then we start to drill down further and speak about the different Caribbean countries, the heritage, etc. And that's important to us because we out there in the business place, we understand that people don't always get our Caribbean. When they see us, they'll say, oh, is it in Africa? Is it in the Indian Ocean? And then we find that we really have to work hard to promote the Caribbean. So what does the Caribbean Tourism Organization do? We're all about advocacy. We're all about ensuring that the Caribbean stays in business. And then we work collectively together on marketing, regional development, capacity building, all the things that a region needs to have in place to ensure that we work together. Now, tourism is important to us because of the revenue that it brings to our region. At the end of 2018, over 29 million people visited the Caribbean, and that doesn't include the cruise ship. That's what we call the stayover business. So we're talking about big business for our region. And when we look at expenditure, over $40 billion is spent in the Caribbean. So that's why you have countries such as your own, Jamaica, others, really working on this business of tourism. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, I have a small team based in the UK, and we're responsible for the Caribbean brand across the UK, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And what we do as the umbrella brand, we work with all the destinations to go out into the marketplace and present the Caribbean. Now, here in London, we have a group that's known as the UK chapter. And what that really is a strong public and private sector cooperation. And what it means is that we work together in the UK with the media, with the travel agents, the tour operators, the airlines, and sometimes as well, if there are issues that are going to stop us from doing business, we will lobby the governments with the support of the High Commissioners. And one of those instances was the air passenger duty, where they wanted to charge more for people to go to the Caribbean than North America. So as a region, we had to really lobby the government and say, you have to be reasonable to us. It's unfair competition. Some of the other things that we're lobbying now is about climate change and other things like that. So that's what we do in the United Kingdom. We work together on a number of programs. But out into the big world now, the Caribbean attends lots of events, and people don't really realize this. But we've done events recently right across the United Kingdom. We've been to the Baltic countries promoting the Caribbean. So we were in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Last week we were in Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. And we go to these places, and some people haven't even heard of the Caribbean. So it's so true. They say, you in Africa? What do you do? Why would we go there? And then we have to draw on all the resources that we have as a region. When I came in and High Commissioner London was speaking about the different activities taking place, you know, the end of Ramadan, the Indian culture. These are some of the things that we have to explain about what is happening in the Caribbean and what people will experience when they come to visit us. Recently, we've been to the Middle East as well, because a number of the Caribbean countries, say, for example, Jamaica and the Bahamas, they have waived visa requirements. In this business of tourism, we need to facilitate trade. We need to ensure that once countries are safe for us to do business with, because there's the intelligence that we must always pay attention to, we should facilitate trade and business. I always say we cannot fish in the same pond as Caribbean people. It's not sustainable. It will run dry. And therefore, it's very important that we go across the world telling our story. And we're lucky because we have celebrities in the field of sports, Usain Bolt, in the field of music, Billy Ocean, Rihanna, the Marley Children, and these people have created a pathway for us. So sometimes when we're trying to explain about the Caribbean, we'll say, have you heard of Rihanna? Have you heard of Billy Ocean? Have you heard of, we talk about a lot of people and they say, oh, they're from the Caribbean, and then they start to drill further and they start to get a measure of our culture, our people. Now, a number of things are really important to the Caribbean right now in business, and one of the main things for us is sustainable development. Most of us are island states, and we are at risk. I read something recently that we're expecting close to 20 storms in the Caribbean this year. Yeah, that many storms. It's already been predicted. Now, we don't know to what extent, but the tornadoes in North America right now are not lost on me. It is an indication of what is building up in the environment. Now, we may not have the type of hurricanes that we had before, but we in tourism are already mindful of this. Yesterday we had a webinar with CARFA, that's the Regional Health Agency, and other stakeholders already looking at the disaster preparedness for the Caribbean. Because unfortunately for us, in 2017, we looked a little unprepared. And we weren't unprepared, but we had a communication problem that we had not experienced before. So we are already starting to build up the Caribbean and to prepare in case we are hit by any form of adverse weather conditions. This is important to us. We have airplanes every day going into the Caribbean. We have cruise ships going into the Caribbean. We have hoteliers. Some have still not recovered from the hurricane in 2017. And all of these people have invested in tourism. So we've got to ensure that if anything happens, we are ready. In tourism and sustainability, there are three main pillars for us. And we say everything that we do in this industry must impact positively on the economy, the environment, and our communities. The economy, because when I worked very closely with, I still work very closely with some of the ministers, and sometimes when I'm fighting the case of tourism, I'm reminded that visitors don't vote. Local people vote. Therefore, when we're making decisions in tourism, we have to be mindful of the impact on our economy and ensure that we're keeping some of that money in the Caribbean. The environment as well. For many years, a number of our destinations used to export sand because it was a great financial thing to do, except we now realize that we have eroded our coastlines. And if you want to know the impact of that, well, you feel it when there's a hurricane and there's a storm when you don't have a strong coastline. And also, I know lots of people who go about chopping down all the trees, but they're not replanting. All of these things impact on the environment as well. And something that the British government is now focusing on, which I too am focused on, is not only the physical environment, but the mental environment. One of the things that has always challenged me whenever I'm in the Caribbean was how we take care or not the senior, those who are mentally infirm, and people, all of these things we now need to look at in the Caribbean, not only the physical environment, but the mental environment. I've had people saying to me, oh, come on, when these things happen in the Caribbean, can't you get things mended quicker? And I'm like, you have to remember that the staff who are serving you in the hotels are the same staff who could have lost everything in a hurricane the night before, and yet they still have to come and serve with a smile, and they have very little left. So it's really important that as we look at the physical environment, we look at the mental environment that our people are working in, and also our communities as well. I'll have people speak to me when we have mosquito-borne infections, and I'll say, be mindful that we have communities, and when we eradicate mosquitoes or put any health measure in place, it's not only for the visitor, but it's for our community as well. And for me with tourism, I really want to know that we're looking at programs that are benefiting women and the youth. Tourism is about adventure, excitement, sharing the beauty of what we have. But we need to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to generate a living from tourism. So we're here today, and it's a diaspora meeting, and we need to ask ourselves, how can the diaspora get involved in tourism in so many different ways? I always say that the number one role that the diaspora has, because of the influence they have in their communities, in the church, in the workplace, is to be a positive messenger about your destination, your country, your home. There are things that upset us because we're close to it, but other people are not as close. And sometimes I find that as Caribbean people, because we're sharing certain things, we share it in a way that makes other people think, well, do I want to go there? Do I want to be a part of that? And even in the media, we've had to speak to the Caribbean media and say, sometimes when we're sharing these stories, we have to remember that because of the impact of social media, we need to be mindful that there are no secrets. And if we post something on our Facebook page, and your cousin in America sees it, and her friend in London seeing it, and then the next friend in France and Germany and Africa, before you know it, we've created a massive channel of spreading negativity. So I'm not saying that we mustn't share the facts, but I've said to the diaspora, you are the messenger of what's happening with your country. And sometimes we need to look at what we're sharing and how we're sharing, and be mindful of the impact it has on our economy. So we need to find ways to tell our story. It's a free society, to get our point of view out there, but to be mindful. As I've said, my heritage is Jamaican, and sometimes people will send me things. I press delete, because I ain't doing that to my people. If I can be a part of the change, I'll be a part of the change. I'm not doing certain things to my people because I have relatives out there living, working, paying tax, trying to survive. Why am I spreading scandalous stories that I don't even know if they're true? So those are some of the things that we really need to look at. Another way the diaspora can get involved is that when you go home, explore. I know people who go to the Caribbean. I used to work for Antigua, so I'm very close to that country as well. And I know people who go home. I'm like, did you try this new restaurant? What restaurant? Did you go and visit this? I ain't spending that kind of money. Why not? If we who are fortunate to live in first world countries don't spend that kind of money, why would anybody else? I'm not saying waste your money. I'm saying go out there and spend some money. Volunteer. There are so many different places that need us to volunteer in the Caribbean. If you have a skill, you'd be amazed at how useful it may be in the School of Hospitality, a community college, a women's program, a youth program. Volunteer. Fundraise. Help communities. If you can sew, crochet, tie-dye, all of these skills that are now dying out, and you're going home and there's an opportunity to have an event in a church, a community hall, and pass on those skills. Bake. Even bake. There's so many different ways we can get involved. If you have the funds, there's investments as well. One of the things I know, and this is from my Jamaican experience and being the child of what could have been termed as the Windrush generation, is that many of my friends and family have inherited homes in the Caribbean. And they don't know what to do with them. They're not going back. Some of them will say, I don't want to go back. Some will say, me nah go back at that place. They all have different reasons. But at the end of the day, we have these homes sitting in the Caribbean. Guest houses. They can be guest houses. They can be community tourism projects. They can be small restaurants, even where you open it maybe just 1 or 2 days a week, and you have an authentic afternoon where you're there in traditional dress, and people can come and let's say, for example, in the case of a Grenada, where they can come and have cocoa tea and sample the spices and listen to traditional music. There are things that we can do with these properties that we have sitting in the Caribbean. High Commissioner spoke about the Chelsea Flower Show. Most of us have green fingers, not me, but most of us have green fingers. There's so many ways we can get involved in tourism, with the homes that we have there, with the properties that we have, with the skills that we have, by just spending money in the community. Some of us will go back. I went to live in Jamaica after school and spent 20 years there. I only meant to spend a couple of years. If I knew, I'd spent 20 years in Jamaica after school, working in tourism. That's when I worked for BWI as well. Absolutely loved it. And now people come to me and they say to me, should I move to the Caribbean? And I say, yes, go back to the Caribbean. We need people with the skills, experience. But make sure when you go there, you're not going to join the ranks of the people who are already trying to make a living. Bring something back to the Caribbean. People said to me, oh, I think I want to go to Jamaica, for example, and they want to be a graphic designer. I said, the one thing Jamaica or the Caribbean is not short of is graphic designers. So instead of going there and looking for a job, go there and see how you can create employment, create opportunities. That's what the diaspora can do. And some people might think I'm retired now, but there are so many retired people I speak to. And when they begin to tell their story of the skills that they have, I'm like, wow, this can be shared. And guess what? Most of you have nieces, nephews, children, grandchildren. If you can't go back and share your skills, you can have your own webinar or page or video where you might just be sharing how to make some wonderful rotis. My daughter loves a roti, you know. Forget about her Jamaican heritage, and it was one of my Trinidadian friends that gave her the recipe. And that's what it's about. Sharing. We can use technology to share every positive thing that we have. But most importantly, the next time you go home, go out, explore, take some pictures, share it with your neighbors and your friends. And invest. I always say to people that I know that some of our Caribbean countries at particular times of year, they have a scheme where you can send home barrels and stuff. Nothing is cheap in England like clothes. And sometimes I'm always taking my clothes to the local charity shops, but I would love to see more of the books, the toys, the educational tools that we have go into the Caribbean. A lot of the tourism employees are quite low paid, and if we can find a way to ensure that their children have knowledge, let's do it. I don't know about how it can be done for Trinidad and Tobago, but we have a High Commissioner here who can always help us. But there are ways in which we can drive tourism by ensuring that the people who work in tourism have a good life, that you yourself are visitors, and that any skills that you have, you find a way. And your children and grandchildren. Even in my own family, I have found that we're moving further and further away from our Jamaican heritage. None of my nieces, nephews, etc. have married even Caribbean people. So what that means is that one nephew, for example, his wife is from Kashmir in Pakistan. So what it means is that their children are one step further from the Caribbean. When their children marry, they're never another step away from the Caribbean. So this is the role that the diaspora plays in ensuring that the legacy, the heritage of the Caribbean continues to be passed down through generation. Doesn't matter who people love, who they marry. What is important is that they know about Trinidad and Tobago. They know about your heroes. They know why your country can stand tall, and they know why you are in the business of tourism and will continue to learn and to develop and to sustain your tourism. So it's my pleasure to be here with you. I'm sorry technology didn't work. I won't tell my staff who typed up the project quickly for me. I'll get it to you in another way. But I really want to say tourism is important. It's the lifeblood of the Caribbean. And as we look and we realize that so many things have changed, I remember the very first time I went to Jamaica, most of my uncles, they were into agriculture and they were planting cane and coffee and everything. Those things don't happen anymore. They were manufacturing. Again, I'll relate it to that Jamaican experience, but I remember we had a railway that went to a place called Catadupa, and visitors would come off the train, measure up for a shirt or a skirt, and when they came back, it was ready for them. These are ways in which people were making a living. These things aren't happening again, but we need to go back to some of these skills because they're going to help our communities to generate an income. And when you have a community that's generating an income, you're reducing crime, you're reducing poverty, and you're impacting positively on education. So that's why you have a team of people who go out there representing the individual countries and representing the Caribbean and traveling all over the world and negotiating with tour operators, travel agents, airlines, cruise companies, because we've seen the benefit of tourism and we want it to continue to benefit our countries. So let's work together to ensure that we remain strong and positive in this business of tourism. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Haye. And I'm sure that we were all inspired by that address. And as we continue to say from time to time here, we have to be responsible for the message that we send out as the diaspora. We have some time for some comments and questions from you. And lost. So we'll invite you to do so now. This is not.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hello, Carol.
Hello.
I'm Jenny. I just want to ask you, could you give us some examples of some of the projects in Trinidad and Tobago that the chapter has been involved with for tourism?
Could I give you an example of...
A couple of examples of some of the projects.
Oh, definitely. Last week when we were in Scandinavia, Trinidad, Tobago actually was with us. What I have found in business right now is that right now it is Tobago that's more visible in the marketplace, but I know that Trinidad is building and restructuring where tourism is concerned. But I will be honest, Tobago has been very assertive in the marketplace, and they've been with us, as I said, in Scandinavia last week. They're going to be working with us on a number of other projects across the UK, and Trinidad and Tobago collectively do want to do more in the marketplace. I know that the focus for many years has been more on Tobago than Trinidad, but because I know Trinidad well, I know that it's a great opportunity for tourism, twin centre tourism. And one of the things I used to love about Trinidad was going into the markets, the fabric shops, and I think people would like that, and the restaurants and stuff. So I think, and while Tobago is moving more towards a nature tourism, and I think it's actually a great combination. But has been said, it is work in progress, and there is a lot more work to be done, but I know that people are working very closely to kind of mobilize tourism in a more direct mission for Trinidad and Tobago. But Tobago is the more assertive one right now. You're welcome. The microphone's needed with here. Yeah.
I think, can you hear me?
No, we
Yeah,
need it for the
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much for a valuable contribution.
Thank you.
I travel to Trinidad, my family and I, very often, and I know there are issues. The points you made about selling the country being positive is so important. It's important to us here, but it's also important to those back home. Because as you talked about, whenever we go home and we ask to visit certain places, we get the negative thing about, you can't go there, you know, the issue of crime. And so I think that what we at home might need to do is to reassure people, yes, like everywhere else in the world, there is crime, but you can visit these places and be safe. You know, coming in and I go down quite often.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so that's something that the government at home, I know they're trying very hard to do, to actually say yes, but you can visit places and be safe. You can enjoy yourself. The other thing might be transport, because trying to ask other people to drive you to places, oh no, we don't go there and can't go there. So you are, you're sort of limited to where you can go. And I mean, I've seen all these beautiful places, and because because of the transport aspect.
Yeah, thank you.
To get to these places.
A couple points. You know, you've raised some really good points. And number one is where to go. Right across the Caribbean, you know, you hear people saying, oh, I'm not sure if you should go to certain places. And I always say, in this business of tourism, we must be sensible. There are places that people shouldn't go to. And if I think that a person shouldn't go to a particular area, I will say that it might not be in your best interest to go there without a local guide. So we're not going to pretend that we're living in some kind of global paradise and there are no challenges, because I'm realistic and mindful, because if I advise someone to go somewhere and anything would happen to them, believe me, I would be guilt-ridden. So I don't fluff over it. But one thing I've learned is that tourists are so adventurous. And sometimes when I speak to tourists, the places that they go to, I'm like, really? I'm absolutely amazed, because they're really adventurous. And the thing with social media is that it has opened up the whole world, and people really want to have this level of excitement, what we call bragging rights, where they want to go to places that other people have not been to. So when we're promoting our home place, if we know that somewhere has a really bad reputation, we're not going to take up some tourists and send them there. And if they're insisting on going, we have to say to them, well, you need to be mindful. It is not a recognized tourism place. So we must always give sensible advice. Now, it's interesting about what you've said about transportation to go to places, because there are a number of tour companies across Trinidad, Tobago and the world. And I think that sometimes we rely a lot, and I'm not being judgmental, I don't know your situation, but I know from my situation when I used to be visiting places, we rely sometimes too much on family to take us to places. And because they have their perceptions already, they may not necessarily want to go. But there are a lot of tourist places with official guides, train guides that know where to take you. And if you're going with a group and family friends, you can put together and you can go and visit some of these places. And that's exactly what I say to the visitors as well. Do explore, but do go in an organized way. I mean, it's like going to New York. There's certain places I wouldn't go into New York in the middle of the night by myself. So I use the same level of common sense. Now, before I answer you, ladies, there's a gentleman there who has had his hand up. Yes, sir.
Yes, Ms. Carol Haye.
Yes.
I must say you are very fresh air.
Oh, thank you.
It's something I've been always thinking about, that we should push our tourism a bit more
Yes.
than we have in the past. And the Trinidad has a lot to offer, as you
Yes.
mentioned. I remember when I was younger, I thought, let me be a tourist in Trinidad before I go and see everywhere else in the world. I remember people would say they don't know Labray. They don't know. I don't know if everybody knows there's a place called Carolina in Trinidad.
Did you know that? A place called Carolina in Trinidad?
Yeah. Of course, we know Monkololo, but okay, there are a few places that right. And when there was the curfew when Abu Bakr was trying to take over, I remember my friends up in Carolina said to me, there's Esperanza, Carolina. They said, "Hey, Anthony, there's no curfew up here. Come up." So we went up there, and it's just a different part of the world, actually, part of Trinidad. However, what I want to say further is this other point you were mentioning about tourism. There's something called cultural tourism, which you might know, where people like to see the culture as it is in a country.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that through an organization called Couchsurfing. Is whereby you message the people, and you say, "I would like to come and stay at you." You look at their profile and see if they like the things like you, if you could exchange something, and so on. And you go to their tongue and see the world from their point of view. You stay in their house. Not just a stranger coming in your house, but there's certain safeguards to check first before that. But the thing about it is that you go all the places that the locals go, just like the locals, and even places where the locals don't want to go, you want to go there too, because you're going the unbeaten path, you know what I mean.
I do understand what
the
you're
path
saying.
that haven't been beaten before. I remember some time back when there was a bombing, the IRA and so on. I went up to Shankill Road, Ford Road and Shankill Road. There's a big gate, they used to close when they're having fighting.
Yes.
And I walked down that street. I saw the people peeping through. And then they realized I'm not Irish, so they decided to leave me alone. But, there are people who like to go these dangerous places, and I think we could probably market that too.
Well,
Cultural tourism.
you've raised a number of points. Number one point, which is top of mind, is that there are people who like to go to dangerous places. It's called dark tourism. And there are people who do that. They're real adventurers, but there's an element of risk with it. And sometimes that actually puts unnecessary burden on the communities because they're not really in a position to take care of their own, let alone visitors. But dark tourism does exist. I even heard people say that they want to come to the Caribbean the next time there's a hurricane. And I'm like, please, we've got to be looking after who's there already without somebody saying, yeah, where's the eye of the storm? But dark tourism does exist. Now, you also mentioned as well cultural tourism. Yes, cultural tourism is where any destination gets that competitive edge. Cultural tourism, creative tourism, community tourism. These are all wonderful conduits to really show what's unique about your community. And there's a massive push, and there are organizations right now. And in actual fact, next week when we have Caribbean Week in New York, we have we're spending quite a bit of time speaking about cultural tourism and how the Caribbean, we can use our people and our resources to really showcase the culture. That's important to me because far too many of our talents are dying out. And I think that's a great shame. And I think it's really important that we maintain it because it's a way for people to generate an income and also to have souvenirs that tourists can take home that don't have made in China, made in Indonesia, made in Taiwan stamped on the back of it. We have far too much to offer. Whenever there's an event in Trinidad and Tobago, you've always got the fantastic chocolate there, the Angostura bitters, the rums, the spices. You've got so much more, and you still have manufacturing, which a lot of other countries do not have on the scale that Trinidad and Tobago has. There's so much that you can do. But it's about not only the government, but the private sector and entrepreneurs really deciding what they want to do and not only putting the burden on the government to come up with everything, but for the people to lead as well on the creativity. So much opportunity and so many skills. I'm sorry, I'm going to do these ladies and you. I think you, yeah.
My name is Angela Cox, and sometimes I would like to watch the travel shows.
Yes.
But why is it you get so much negativity about Trinidad? It was the bird sanctuary, and next thing this foreign couple went to see it. They actually invited more people from America to come.
Yes.
And the scarlet ibis, there was very little. And next thing you know, you're told that the reason why is because people are killing them and they're having parties, with the bird meat, and these are the things I think we as fellow nationals or Trinidadians should think before we act, because it spoils things. This is on British television, the BBC.
Yeah. Well, two things. Number one, unfortunately, I didn't see the program, but I travel far too much, but I'll try and catch up on it in an iPlayer. Number two, that is why it's so important to have communities involved in tourism. I can remember there was another destination, not in the Caribbean, where they were eating the turtle eggs, and the visitors and everybody were, so upset. How can you be eating the turtle eggs? But as far as this particular community that was not in the Caribbean was concerned, hey man, that's food, So it's really important for communities to be involved in tourism, to understand why we don't kill any of our indigenous birds, marine life, animals. But I always say, if you're going to say to somebody, you can't eat those turtle eggs, I've never heard of anybody grilling the scarlet ibis, so I'm going to have to take your word for it. But if we're going to say to people that they can't do these things, we need to have solutions. There has to be solutions, but I will investigate that more. But I know that there's much greater push in the Caribbean for communities to be aware of the importance of protecting the scarlet ibis and the other birds that can be found across the Caribbean, the turtles, the alligators. I think the only thing I hear people want to eat is the lionfish, because they're killing everybody else. But it's really important, and that's why tourism and environmental protection and community knowledge all go hand in hand. We have to work together.
The other thing I wanted to say is about you said the Caribbean festival.
Yes.
In Trafalgar Square, they have the Africans, the Chinese, the Indians, they have festivals there, but they don't have the Caribbean.
Yeah. Guess what? I got the proposal. I'd have to sell everybody's firstborn to pay for it. The Caribbean, we've received proposals to do some of these things, but sometimes the money is just too much. And unless we're willing to come together to do it, it's a challenge. But this is one of the areas that we do have to have greater cooperation. But sometimes you'll have some governments sponsor it. There are some African countries, they may have gold, they may have diamonds, they may have... Not only that, Africa gets more funding than the Caribbean does. I remember years ago I went to the European Union and to speak to them about funding, and they made it clear to me that per capita, the Caribbean had more Mercedes-Benz and BMW. No, that's what they said to me, than other parts of the world. Who's going to fund us? We're not even considered poor anymore. It sounds terrible, but it's true. It's the fact of doing business. Now, did you have a question? Then we're going to go to that lady. Yeah, don't worry, we're going to get to everybody until the High Commissioner stops me.
It wasn't a question. It was just I wanted to give a plug for the Trinidad and Tobago public transport system.
Thank you.
Because the bus system in Trinidad and Tobago is fantastic.
Yeah.
But what you find is that family locally dissuade you from using it.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a brilliant service.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give
a
plug for that. It's not always on time,
but
once you get to know when and where to go, it's a brilliant system.
Do you know what? Public transport is good. I have a friend based in Jamaica, top lawyer. She came to London. I said, I have a gift for you. She said, what is it? I gave her an Oyster card. Seriously, I gave her an Oyster card. And within a week, my friend who only drives in the Caribbean learned the public transport system. And she said she met people, she spoke to people when she got lost. Public transport is good. The lesson I've learned is don't wear too much jewelry in any country when you're on public transport. And don't carry all your money and all your passports, but carry what you need, carry your water, and have a fabulous time. And there are visitors, the adventurous ones, who now they've realized that some bus fares are like $1, $2 in their currency. They're taking the buses. You go to Barbados and there are people who will come out of the airport and go and take the bus to go to their apartment. It's all a part of community tourism. We're going to move to this side of the room because I know that some people had questions on this side.
I'd just like to add for the information, she brought up about the skydiving.
Yes.
It is a protected bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the fine for that is $500,000 if you're caught.
Well, I hope they find them.
Even a feather in your possession.
When I worked with BWIA, we had scarlet ibis and golden ibis to describe economy and first class on the plane. So I know that the ibis is a protected bird. And it's sorrowful what you've said, but it's protected, and I hope the law will fall down fully on anyone who who interferes with endangered communities, areas, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, beaches, etc. We in the Caribbean need to be strict about these things as well. It's our land, it's our future, it's everything for us, and we must protect them. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for adding that as well. I believe there's a lady behind you.
Yeah, I'm Anne Phillip. I wanted to know how your organization works, because I'm thinking of, suppose you are working with somebody, a tourist leader who is, not as vibrant and interested, and, how would you get that done? Well, the country being promoted.
Well, first of all, how the Caribbean Tourism Organization works is that we're owned right now by 24 member countries. Every 2 years, those countries select a chairman from the ministers. So we have a chairman of the Council of Ministers and Commissioners, and we also have a board of tourism directors. And we meet maybe 4 or 5 times a year to look at issues impacting on the Caribbean collectively, and we share ideas and initiatives, and we work with what I call the cooperation of the willing. Not every promotional idea is for everyone, so people will cooperate in different markets and different initiatives. And I'm not going to answer this politically. I'm going to honestly say that you find that most people who work in tourism, even if they knew nothing about tourism when they became, let's say, for example, the minister, it is such a dynamic industry that you soon really get on board, get involved, and understand the magnitude of tourism and the positivity that tourism can have on a country. Now, it's not all roses. There are other issues that we need to look at. We always need to be mindful of our solid waste management, disaster preparedness, crime. There are issues that we must be mindful of. But we find that by working collectively as a region, sharing knowledges and best practices, we manage to handle this business of tourism productively. And there are other parts in the world. Recently, I think I was in Dubai, and the minister of a country in the Indian Ocean came to me just to find out how we're doing certain things in the Caribbean, because sometimes we're really beating ourselves up, but there are other people out there in regions who have a lot of respect for the Caribbean, and they respect the fact that we recognize the importance of tourism. We don't get it right every day, but no one can say we don't try. We really do try as a region.
Hello, Ms. Haye.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and sharing all this good knowledge. 2 questions. My name is Martina, but one is, you spoke about nationals actually investing their skills and, back home to what they have or what they've learned. Have you got like an area in your organization where we can dial up and deal directly with them to find out how can we how can we go about starting to implement all these skills or promote what we want to do for the country?
The first, I was going to say, well, the first point will always be your national tourism organization, the head office in the Caribbean. So in your case, you'd look at either the Ministry of Tourism in Trinidad or the Tobago Tourism Development. Anyone, yeah. And the first thing is to have the discussion and to find out what they're doing, because they're based there and they really know where the needs are. It's also good to look at the community colleges as well. There are a number of community colleges, and it's also good to look at the small business associations. Okay. They provide excellent opportunities.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that question is very timely because within the next 2 weeks, they're going to be launching a Caribbean Diaspora Skills Bank, and where they're going to be able to get place that kind of information to make available for the Caribbean governments. So immediately after the launch, you'll make all the information available on our website. So your question is quite timely.
Oh, lovely, thank you. And the other one is with regards to villages and developing the surroundings, and the quality of, the visits that we have with people from abroad, is that the beaches and the villages are the two main things that people go to the Caribbean for. So do you know of what the government is actually doing to develop these places, or to spend some money on these areas to make it more desirable?
Yes, most countries have at least a 10-year tourism master plan, and the 10-year tourism master plan can normally be found on the Ministry of Tourism website. And when you review the master plan, and now they're normally documents of hundreds of pages, so you may have to go to the index and go to where you want, but most tourism master plans based on 10 years are looking at how they can work with communities, and some communities will be able to do it very well. There are others that will be seeking regional funding or international funding, but a good place to start is with the Tourism Master Plan. Also to visit the websites of the Hotel Association, the Ministry of Tourism, and the Tourism Development Agency. There's a wealth of information there. And because we work with 24 countries, it would take a bit long for me to go through everyone with you, but that's why I have to average it out and say countries must have a master plan. We've got to plan. A lot of the master plans are like coming to a current end now, because people tend to do things symbolically. So you're going to find that a number of destinations now are going to be starting to look at their direction for 2030, the next 10 years from now. Now, recently I had to speak in Grenada at the awards ceremony for their hotel workers, and I was researching my speech. And I read something that kind of slapped me in the face. And it said that the pace at which we are currently doing business right now is the slowest it will ever be. Now, who feels rushed off their feet sometimes? I know I do. I see a few other people nodding. This is the slowest it's ever going to be. I can't remember if I was online or TV, but I was listening recently to the difference between 3G, 4G, and 5G. And apparently 5G is going to be able to download masses of stuff in 3 seconds. They said something that 3G would have taken 3 days to download on your laptop. 5G is going to be doing in seconds. I tell people that tourism, we are dealing with what is known as the always-on consumer. You think about it. Right now, even in our homes, even people who say, I'm retired, I'm not even into those things again. We have smart TVs. Remember, we only had BBC and ITV? Now you have more channels than you can even watch. We have iPads, we have cell phones, we have, Alexa. So you have to be careful what you're saying before Alexa start to laugh or answer. Do you know what I'm saying? We have all of these things. Guess what? The tourists who we're marketing to have all of these things. So that's why I say to the Caribbean, when we talk about tourism and the role that any of us can play at any time, this industry is so dynamic. People no longer walk into travel agencies between 9 and 5 and book holidays. They wake up in the night and think, I'm so vexed with my husband, my wife, my child, my boss. I'm gonna book a ticket somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the airlines have to be ready to take that booking. The cruise companies have to take that booking. Booking.com, hotels.com, or the online reservation system. And if they want to book a taxi to pick them up from the airport, somebody had better have a system that can respond to them. That's the business Trinidad and Tobago is now in. So when I read that what we're facing now is the slowest it will ever be, even I was like, wow. That's what we've got to compete against to stay in business, to stay afloat. So we can have all the tourism master plans we want. If we don't have a workforce that's equipped, if we don't have the technology that can respond, we're not in business. Nobody's going to think, oh, well, Trinidad's going to open at 9 o'clock tomorrow, so I'll wait till then. They'll Google closest island to Trinidad. They'll Google Caribbean islands, places in the sun, and they will get something else. If we're lucky and we've all optimized our websites, they'll get another Caribbean solution. If we're not, Sri Lanka, Africa, the Indian Ocean, Florida, Mallorca, my friend, you're quite right. Mallorca. They're all out there ready to take our business. So gone are the days. I remember when I first started working in tourism and we would be giving out posters. People would write to us and we'd send them a poster and we'd think we did something really good. Now we're being called to run webinars all over the world. We've been invited to Africa in September. We haven't done enough business with Africa. And Africa is particularly Ghana and Nigeria, they're celebrating the year of the return because it's 400 years since the ships left with our ancestors. And they've invited the Caribbean to come back and talk tourism. Some people are like, why would you go? And I'm like, because we must return and show what we've done as a region and how we've survived and sustained ourselves and moved on. So it's competitive out there, this business of tourism. People will say to me, how do I get in tourism? And I'll say, study something, anything, but study something. And make sure that when you're in this business, you can survive and you can sustain yourself. But it's an exciting time for Trinidad, Tobago, the Caribbean, but it's going to get faster and more competitive. I keep hearing of countries. I'm like, where is this country? How come they're in tourism? What are they dealing with? New countries are emerging, and they're in this business as well. It's not a new business, it's an old business. And we're constantly being told about our hotel product. And I will research. Now, we can't compete with a Dubai and other places, and we don't try to. But there are people who say, should I go to Dubai or should I go to the Caribbean? So while we can't compete on some things, I promise you we have a charm, a personality, and a vibe that nobody else can buy. And that's how we're going out there in the marketplace.
Okay, sorry.
All right, one more.
Hi, I just need to find out if you can answer my question.
I'll try.
Would tourism boost our currency in Trinidad and Tobago? Because what I have found, observing tourism, especially in the Caribbean islands, is that once it started, the country's currency seems to devalue. At the moment, in Trinidad, I get so frustrated sometimes when I go home, I'm extremely tired. I reach in the airport, and when I'm going through customs and I need to buy something, they're asking me for American dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do understand your point about, you know, tourism and having it to boost, because it's all about money at the end of the day. But why is it we are now going just American dollars? I come to England, I can't bring my Trinidad dollars here. You know, I go to America, it's the same thing, anywhere.
Yeah.
And I notice in Jamaica, because I've got several Jamaican friends, for £1, it's
$171.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Do you know? Yeah.
So it's okay. I do understand where you're coming from. It's really good. But if it's not going to strengthen our currency, because a country's currency is really what makes the country. And if it's going to devalue my dollar, I don't think
I can't say if tourism has devalued. I can't speak to whether tourism has devalued the Trinidad and Tobago dollar or not. I don't have the authority to speak on that. But I will say something. Tourism is an international business, and visitors are coming from all over the world. And I think that the reason why people have started to accept dollars has been to make it easier for people to spend money. Now, I know it's not the type of thing you want to hear, but I can only... No, I fully understand. And what that has done, unfortunately, is to push the price up for locals. It has done that. Unfortunately, I don't have a solution. I don't know if the High Commissioner... Well, I do know this much about tourism. Yeah. Yeah, I can't answer that, but you've asked a good question. I do know this much. If you have a strong tourism product and if you have visitors coming in, it does help a destination to generate more foreign exchange. Now, one of the lessons I have learned in this business of tourism, we the tourism people are always arguing that we make the money, but we don't get to spend it. Because when the tourism dollars come into a destination, there are so many other things. There are other aspects that we have to pay for in a country that doesn't earn money for us. We pay for our education. We pay for health. So the tourism dollar is very stretched. Do I believe that tourism can help to strengthen a destination's economic position? Yes, I do. But I also believe it has to be the right leadership in place to know how to handle that money. I believe if you have a strong financial ministry, they're able to make the right decisions. But I think the first thing for any destination to do is that if they're going to be in the business of tourism, is to take it seriously, look at ways in which to generate an income, and look at ways in which to sustain that income and spend the money properly. But I can't really say if tourism will be the solution for Trinidad, because I haven't looked at it, I haven't done any research, so I wouldn't be speaking with any real evidence. Yeah, but I've seen other destinations in the Caribbean predominantly accept US dollars and do very, very well, you know. And I've seen. No, not for local people. But I've also realized as well that local people know where to shop. And they sometimes know how to make decisions. Because like I know local people. It's like me. There are certain things I don't do in central London because I know it's tourist price. Last week I was in Denmark. I wanted somewhere to eat. The taxi driver said to me, don't eat on the strip because it's tourist price. Just go on one of the side roads and it's a 50% difference. And I think it applies the same. But I do respect the questions that you're asking. And as we move forward in tourism, some of the points that you've you've raised about the economy, the impact of the tourism dollar, how we spend it, how it impacts on our people. We have to look at that, because when we talk about sustainability, I did say that it's looking at the economy, the environment, and the communities. So the questions that you've asked are spot on. I just don't have the solution. If I did, I'd be a very rich lady, because I'd sell the idea. But thank you anyway.
Fellow nationals, I have to do this. My apologies to the chairman, but I think I personally, on behalf of all of us here, have to commend Ms. Haye. You know, that combination of professionalism and passion and empathy is something rare. And I really, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for an enlightening evening. Chairman, my apologies, and back to you.
But I'm here, sir, so I can speak with...
All right, she's put all of us in a good mood, so we'll allow the question. Well, I don't know if any of them want to say something. Yeah, I think we owe it to them to say something.
Yes, good afternoon. I wanted to ask, how often do you all meet, and who decides what is promoted from each island, or what is taken when you go on to promote tourism? Who decides? So say for Trinidad and Tobago, you say you're going to Nigeria, or you're going to Ethiopia. What do you take to represent Trinidad and Tobago? Who decides that in the organization? Because you may take something, but then you may have something else that would promote Trinidad and Tobago much more, or would enthusiasm the people there to come to Trinidad and Tobago?
That's a very good point. Well, first of all, as I said, I head up UK Europe, and I actually have a board made up of private sector persons, and I meet with my board on a monthly basis, and we look at the marketplace, we look at airlift, we look at the economy, and then we decide on the places that we're going to be targeting. We have an annual plan which probably has about close to 100 events of all different levels, some big, some small, that we want to do. We send it out to the ministers of tourism, the directors of tourism, and then they decide what they want to join in, what's important to them. So let's say, for example, that the trip to go to be a part of Akwaba travel market in Nigeria. We've sent that out. We've sent that out to destinations. We sent that out today, actually. Some people will be interested, some won't. But the Caribbean Tourism Organization, if we go and 2 or 3 destinations come with us, those destinations present are going to get the most visibility, because they've got their key people really talking about the destination and showcasing, a bit like what happens at World Travel Market in London. The Caribbean Tourism Organization, we are paid by 24 countries, including Trinidad and Tobago. So anything I do, I speak about all 24 countries, even though I'm Jamaican to the bone. Where my living is concerned, I speak about all Caribbean. In actual fact, most people thought I was Antiguan for many years, because I never spoke about solely Jamaica, because I'm paid by the entire Caribbean. So it's the destinations that are present when the Caribbean goes on the road that gets the greatest visibility. As to what they decide to do, that decision is normally left to either the country's regional director or representative in this market. So in the case of Tobago, you're represented by AMG with Nadine and her team. And to be honest, they do a lot with the Caribbean Tourism Organization. And so the local team may make the decision, or the Ministry of Tourism in Trinidad, or the tourism agency in Tobago. But a lot goes into the decision making, but this is only what happens in UK, Europe, Middle East, Africa. We have teams in North America, we have teams in all over Scandinavia and other parts. So different people determine, but at the end of the day, we all have to justify what we do. I never go anywhere because I want to go. I'm so committed to the Caribbean and Caribbean tourism. I really think about it strategically with my team, and if I don't think there's any business for the Caribbean, we don't go. Or if we think it's a market that has potential and we think that our Caribbean brand can challenge some of the other destinations that are there, we will go into that marketplace.
Okay, I wouldn't want to keep longer. Two things. One, what literature is given out in the Caribbean?
Sorry, can I have that bag there? This is just an example of it. There's so much that's given out, believe me. I give out stuff, the destinations give out stuff, we use technology. But for me, I've got my Caribbean. I've actually got 4 different guides. I've got the general guide to the Caribbean, the MICE guide, which is meetings, incentives, conference and events. I have a wedding and honeymoon guide. I have a dive guide. These are the 4 publications that I created, my team, not only me, to promote the whole of the Caribbean. Each destination, so like when we do stuff with, let's say, Trinidad and Tobago, you're promoting a lot of the rum, the chocolate, the adventure, the boutique properties that you've got. And you know that one of the most famous things in the world that people love, the buku, the goat racing. Every time we speak about the goat racing in Tobago, people love it. They want to be, they don't do it anywhere else. So, and also as well, we've got to be very visual. We have to take a lot of images with us, videos with us, sound bites. It's all about reaching out to people and engaging with them and being as unique as you can. But whatever material people provide, we take with us. But some destinations don't always have material. And even if your destination didn't come with us, say to Africa, because we're taking these information with us, you get visibility. And sometimes people will give us bags. We got these bags from Tobago last week in Copenhagen. So, you know, people give you all different things, and you just have to go into the marketplace prepared. But the biggest tool we have is our voice and our passion.
So to pick up from my colleague here, if we were to reach out to you, we would have to reach out to the ministry in our country.
It depends. You can reach out to me directly as well, because I'm responsible for this region. So I'm happy to work with you in this region, but you can also go through Louis and the team in Tobago, or the team at the Ministry of Tourism. But always feel free to contact me, because if I can work with any destination and it's possible, I will. That's why we're in business.
Yeah, I thought...
I'm sorry. You asked. Oh yeah, we're in Edinburgh, Dundee, and Glasgow. Yeah. 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 I will check to see if they're coming to Scotland, but the Caribbean will be, I'll tell you, we're going to be in the Channel Islands in the next 2 weeks. We're going to Jersey, Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Leeds, somewhere else I can't remember. We're all over.
Yeah, you know, there's a saying that if you want to know that you really had a good meal, is when, you know, you want to ask for more and more helpings. And if you want to know that you've done well at a session like this, is when people don't want it to end. And I think we have demonstrated very clearly that we don't want it to end. I suspect that Miss Haye has put herself in serious trouble, that she's going to get an invitation to return very soon.
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. There's one thing before I hand over. The representative from the team to the Chelsea Flower Show, I suppose out of modesty, did not respond to the point made. But I just want to indicate that we did have a conversation, and we have to find a strategy that will ensure that they're not scrambling in 2020 as they did in 2019. One of those strategies would involve persons and organizations contributing to the process. So I want to suggest that we will try to do something in the United Kingdom. And when that is done, you all will remember what they've achieved and be generous in your donations. Okay. So, you didn't make a plug for yourself, I make a plug for you. All right.
Do you have garden tours that you promote as a tourism attraction here? Garden tours. Okay, great stuff.
Okay, thank you, High Commissioner. Thank you, Ms. Haye. And as High Commissioner just indicated, it is very clear that we had a good meeting this evening, because we could not, stop asking Ms. Haye questions, and it's, I'm glad that such interest was generated. Ms. Cox indicated a while ago that she's responsible for the Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK pageant here in London. And this afternoon, we are privileged to have Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK, Leanne Goddard, who herself just returned from a prize trip to Trinidad and Tobago, and we'd just like to ask her to bring greetings.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Leanne Goddard, Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK 2018. Most of you may know me. I've been to a couple meetings here before, so good afternoon, High Commissioner. I'm Miss May. It's been an honor I came in a bit late, I do apologize, but you touched on a lot of great points, and it's individuals like yourself that do inspire me to be more passionate about my country. I love Trinidad and Tobago. I recently came back from my prize trip on Tuesday, so I'm still a bit tired, but it was one of the most successful trips I've ever been on. I go back home almost every year, and this year I've done things that I've never done before, and it was very enlightening. I've met with various ministers from across Trinidad and Tobago. More specifically, I've met with Her Excellency Ms. Weeks, which was simply a delight. She has the young people at heart, and there are projects that she's working on that we will be encouraging the young people and trying to get them more involved and learn more about their culture, and which will help with the tourism aspects of things, as we've been discussing today. I've met with the Mayor of Port of Spain, the Minister of Culture and Community Development. I've met with numerous people that you will find on Facebook and Instagram if you do follow me. As a young person, we use technology all the time, and as we heard, we are the messengers, we pass things on. And I use my platform to encourage young people I've had people say, oh wow, because of you, I want to visit Trinidad now. And I love that. I have a lot of African friends. I was privileged to go to Nigeria with a team across December, where we participated in the first international Emo Carnival, that's a state in Nigeria, and it was amazing. We wore Trinidad costumes that was inspired by Trinidad and the carnival, because we have the best in the world. But being part of this process, it highlights that young people can make a difference, and we are the one, because I spend 24/7 on my phone, and I know other young people do too, and we can get that positive image across to more. And from the older heads, we learn from you. So we want to know what you know, and we want to learn the skills that you know, and that will help encourage us and pass it on to the next generation, because there's a lot of things that I don't know and I'm still willing to learn. But as Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK, I put myself in a position where I can learn these things, and then I can help inspire others. So I was fortunate to share my story in Trinidad. I was born and raised in a small village called Carolina Village, which the gentleman mentioned earlier. A lot of people have not heard of Carolina. It's somewhere in the back of Cuba. And it was one of the most touching things, because even though I go home regularly, in 2 days, they put together a whole motorcade. They had a police escort, they had all the motorcycle guys, I can't remember what you call them, riders. They did I was expecting 5 to 10 cars. It had almost 50 cars. And I was simply overwhelmed by the love and the encouragement from that village, because they were so proud that something good came out of Carolina. And I'm like, I'm not the only good thing in Carolina. So it's just that I had opportunities to step out, and I took advantage of that, and now I can highlight. And one of my passions is going back to the village and helping young people, creating a platform where they can show what they're made of as well. So, as Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK, I will keep doing what I enjoy, and I'm passionate about Trinidad, and I will encourage other young people to keep doing so. And I've had a lot of messages from Facebook and Instagram coming through to me where people are like, I didn't even know there was a Miss Trinidad and Tobago UK pageant, and I had to give them more information about that. And a lot of people in this room, it will be amazing to see you at the next show, which will be held next September 2020. And come and support us, because even though we live here, we're still passionate about our country, and we have something to do really. Yes, so, and we do a talented teens segment as well. So for your younger ones, from the age of 13, they can come and show us their talents, singing, dancing, whatever it is. We want to encourage them and teach them more about their culture. So it's not, it doesn't get lost because we live here in the UK. But that was just a brief address from me on request of the High Commissioner. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goddard, Ms. TNT UK 2018. And thank you, Ms. Cox, for the work that you continue to do with these young ladies and talented teens. We are coming to the end of this aspect of our proceedings. I would like to again thank Ms. Haye for coming, and truly I was inspired and encouraged by much she had to say. And Ms. Goddard, I also know Carolina Village, Couva, because as an immigration officer, you tend to be around Trinidad and Tobago very often. So that is actually, I was glad to hear it, because it's not a place that you know about. And I want to encourage us. There are many undiscovered places in Trinidad and Tobago that persons from outside would really be interested in visiting, and we can work at promoting these things. Just before we close, I just want to reiterate a few announcements that are on your program. To remind you that the High Commission will be closed tomorrow, May 30th, due to the Indian Arrival Day celebrations, as well as June 5th for the Eid ul-Fitr celebrations. Also not listed, but we need to be mindful of. We'll also be closed on the 19th of June, which is Labor Day. I want to remind you that on Friday, May 31st at 6 p.m. at the Amber Hotel, the Prime Minister will be addressing the Diaspora and giving information that would be of interest to all of us, bringing us up to date and up to speed on what is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago right now. And I want to encourage those of you who have not registered with Ms. Awanai or Mr. Lovell to do so at the end of the program. Again, I wish to thank you for coming, and now I wish to invite you to participate in a few refreshments to commemorate Indian Arrival Day. Please feel free to approach the table, and you will be served a snack commemorative of our Indian Arrival Day celebrations taking place in Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.